Hey guys, Tommy with Studio Sense here. Pretty much everyone has heard of the fragrance house Creed, and in particular heard of Creed Aventus. For those of you out there that are interested in knowing what Creed Aventus is like, if you're able to get a sample, fantastic. If you know somebody that owns Creed Aventus, get them to let you try it out. But if you're interested in maybe getting a fragrance that smells similar to Creed Aventus, you are in luck, because today that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm featuring 6 fragrances that smell very similar to Aventus, some by chance and of course some by design. All of these are very inexpensive, very affordable. So got that and more coming your way, so stay tuned. Welcome back everyone. So today's subject is Creed Aventus, the very popular men's fragrance. It's popular for good reason. It is a very outstanding smelling fragrance. It is somewhat common now, however. When Creed Aventus first hit the scene, that smell was amazing. And when you smelled it or smelled it on someone, you couldn't get it out of your head. It was so magnetic, so different. Fruits, in particular pineapple, along with woods such as birch, and put a little bit of smoke in the background, light resins, and to create a long-lasting fragrance. The ladies love to smell it on men, and men love to smell it on themselves. Everyone seemed to enjoy Creed Aventus, but the price tag is quite high for a 100 ml bottle, so it's kind of out of the reach for your average guy out there. But what about your average guy that wants to smell like Creed Aventus or have something that smells very similar? Well, today we're going to be talking about 6 of such fragrances. The very first Creed alternative that I can recommend is from Rue Broca. It is called Are You Serious for Him? Kind of a strange name. On the very front of the fragrance, it has this caption that sounds like it's from a Hallmark card, just talking about the girl of this guy's dreams and how she makes him feel, and that's what's emblazoned on the very front. We don't care about that, we just care about what the fragrance smells like. The fragrance bottle is like half a moon shape. This one is a pretty decent Aventus clone. It's got a lot of fruity pineapple. It does that smoky birch in the background really well. In the mid to the dry down of the fragrance, you can start to smell tell a little bit of a difference in the actual Creed. Nobody's going to be smelling this on you and then grabbing Creed and smelling it and be like, ah, you're wearing a clone. Nobody will do that because it smells so very similar. It does open with a very fruity bergamot, apple, and black currant combination. In the heart is where you get that jasmine and that rose and that birch. And in the base, ambergris, musk, and patchouli that gives it its long-lasting, heavy base, which is, again, an eau de parfum concentration. Are You Serious performs decently well, and it's very inexpensive. That's the biggest caveat to pretty much all of these, and in particular, the clones themselves. And so, if you want to smell like Creed Aventus, I can recommend an actual clone, Are You Serious for Him by Rue Broca. Our next Creed Aventus alternative is from the Dunhill Desire fragrance line, which is pretty popular. It's Dunhill Desire Gold. This is what's called an Aventus twist. So they're trying to smell a little bit like Aventus while doing its own thing. I recommend Aventus twists. Just like somebody can smell a fragrance and interpret it differently, twists are just like that. They're very similar to the fragrance that they're mimicking, but they kind of do their own thing. And the thing that Desire Gold does is fruit really well. It's got a really nice pineapple open, which pineapple is the primary fruit sensation that you get out of Creed Aventus. It goes a little bit farther with a little bit of sweetness. It's not a super sweet fragrance. It kind of rides that fine line between gourmand and light woody sweetness. I find it very pleasant, and the good thing is not a lot of people are wearing Desire Gold. It's kind of one of those throwaway flankers out there that people will get and forget about, but it's really very pleasant, and it actually performs decently well. This one is a good 7 to 8 hours of longevity, and it projects as decently as any Aventus clone does. This one's going to be really inexpensive for a 100 ml bottle, about 25-30 bucks. Definitely check this one out. Alfred Dunhill Desire Gold. Next up in our Creed Aventus alternatives is a fragrance by Perry Ellis called America. America's kind of a gaudy looking fragrance. I don't know, to me it just looks like an unfinished wrapped Christmas gift, and they left the bow off. Underneath that kind of gaudy presentation is actually a pretty decent Creed Aventus clone. Well, there are some people out there that say this isn't a Creed Aventus clone, but I just want to tell you some of the notes that are actually in the fragrance. It's got a top of bergamot, pineapple, and white pepper. It has a heart of lavender, rose, and myrrh, and a base of patchouli, birchwood, and amber. By those notes alone, you gotta know this is a Creed Aventus clone. Now, whether they want to admit that or not, that's perfectly fine, but it also smells very much like Creed Aventus, although it is kind of doing its own take on it. Now this is the 2019 version. I think the original was in 1996. The 2019 is kind of a more modernized version, again following that same aromatic appeal that is Creed Aventus. Perry Ellis America doesn't perform as good as most of these in this list, but it's decent, you know, between 5 to 6 hours of longevity and a decent sillage trail. So if you want a pretty decent, minimally costing Creed Aventus clone, definitely check out Perry Ellis America. For our next Creed Aventus alternative is a fragrance by Mont Blanc. I think out of all of these fragrances, it stands on its own as the most elegant take on Creed Aventus, and that is Mont Blanc Explorer. It just so happens that it smells very much like Creed Aventus. It just so happens to be a very nice Creed Aventus-like kind of fragrance that does its own thing, that carries itself very well, very elegantly, has its own personality. There's some really nice leather notes. There's some really good woody notes like Akigala wood here. There's a lightly balsamic cocoa note as well. So there's not as many notes in this that are in Creed Aventus, but yet it still amazingly comes across very much Aventus-like. This one is super easy to recommend, and because it's very popular, it's not quite as inexpensive as most of these, but still the cost is very minimal when compared to Creed Aventus. Mont Blanc Explorer. Our next Creed Aventus alternative is probably something you're already familiar with. It's very popular as an Aventus alternative. It is Club de Nuit Intense Man by Armaf. Now this is the Eau de Parfum version. There is an Eau de Toilette version. I just prefer the Eau de Parfum. I don't know, there's something about it that appeals to me. It's almost a blow-by-blow take on the Aventus scent profile. Very much the same kind of structure, the same olfactive structure as Creed Aventus does, and it has massive amount of longevity. It is a good 12-hour fragrance for me. Club de Nuit Intense Man, or CDNIM as most people call it, is one of the best Creed Aventus clones. Of course, Armaf is very well known for creating high-quality clones at a very low cost. If you're looking for a low-cost, almost exact duplicate of the Creed Aventus DNA, then your best bet is likely CDNIM by Armaf. Whether it's the Eau de Parfum or the Eau de Toilette, it's going to be up to you, but I prefer the Eau de Parfum version. It lasts a bit longer and comes across a bit more lemony fresh. Now the last Creed Aventus alternative, when I first smelled it, I personally didn't think it smelled a ton like Creed Aventus. I could tell what people saw in it or smelled in it that made them think of Creed Aventus, but it is a Michael Malul fragrance. It is Citizen Jack Absolute. It's got that whole fruity pineapple thing going on, but it also has a very sweet kind of density or quality to it that Creed Aventus doesn't have, and that kind of makes Citizen Jack Absolute its own thing. This actually opens with bergamot and melon, and then the pineapple is in the heart, but you get it immediately when you spray this on. It's got a good bit of amber, vanilla, and musk as well. It's a heavier fragrance, and I didn't really like it when I first wore it because to me it smelled too much like a feminine hair product. You know, it had that kind of body to it, that kind of overall smell and sweetness to it. But once it dries down, it's actually a pretty close facsimile to Creed Aventus. And so the more that I allowed it to dry down, the more that I wore it, the more closely it resembled Creed Aventus. And so if you're interested in something that's going to be a little bit sweeter, maybe a little bit heavier, there's quite a bit of masculine musk going on in Citizen Jack Absolute. So if that's kind of the take that you want in your Creed Aventus alternative, you definitely want to check out Michael Malul's Citizen Jack Absolute. All of these kind of do their own thing with the Creed Aventus scent profile, and they're all of them, I think, equally as enjoyable for, you know, how they represent the fragrance themselves without it being an exact duplicate. But if you're looking for an exact blow-by-blow duplicate or replica of Creed Aventus, your best bet's probably CDNIM. There are a few others out there. If you've tried these fragrances out, or if you smelled another clone or Creed Aventus smell-alike that I didn't talk about today, let me know what that is in the comments below. I'm interested in your take on that. But thanks so much for stopping by, checking out today's video. As always, thank you so much for your support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow.